Hi there, welcome to this video where I'm going to show you how to create a multi-step form within Bubble that looks just like this one here. We have different steps where they can enter different information. We've got different types of data information here, so we've got drop downs as well, and they can create an account at the end of these multi-steps. Obviously, you can take this tutorial and apply it to your own software, so you can do whatever you want and capture whatever information you want to capture with this multi-step form. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so here we are inside of Bubble. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is add the properties to the data type, which is going to be the user. We're going to add them here. So we want to capture on our form first name, and that's going to be text. We want the last name. So let's go last name, which is also going to be text. Now, we want the address. So what we're going to have is address line 1, and we're going to have address line 2. There is a field type of geographic address where we can store the address in just one variable. However, we're going to go through and do it the old-fashioned way, as it were. So address line 2, then we're going to have address city, as they're going to be able to enter the city, which is going to be text. We're going to have address postcode. You may better know this as zip code, but over in the UK we call it postcode. And then we're just going to have address country as well. And of course, when you're building out your own, you can have whatever variables you want in here, whatever data that you want to store, you can have that. So we're going to add a few more bits of data. We're going to add business name, which is going to be text. We're going to add what should we call it? Position in business. So this is going to be kind of like a job description. Maybe that would have been a better name for it, but we'll go with that. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to create some option sets, because what we also want to capture from this person doing this form is what type of business they run and how many employees they have. And to do that, we're going to create option sets. Let's skip the tutorial. Option sets essentially allow the user to select one of a given number of fields. So if we want to say how many employees do you have and we don't want to leave it wide open, we instead want to bracket it down, then we can do that using option sets. So if we say employee number as the name of the option set, what we can then do is we can put in the different option sets into this option set, or the different options into the option set. Let's have 1. So they can either select they've got 1 employee, they can say 2 to 10 employees, they can have 11 to, let's say, 50, let's say 51 to 100, and then let's say 101 or more. So this way, when we create the drop down soon, they will be able to select one of these options here. They won't have to enter a number directly into Bubble. Let's also create one for business type. And actually, let's put it together like that. And let's put a few options in here. So let's have, obviously, software. We love software. Let's have marketing. Let's have construction. Hopefully I spelled that correctly. Legal. Let's go home services. So I guess it's like plumbing and electrician. And let's just have an other category as well. Okay, great. So last thing we need to do is we need to add these option sets over into our data type. So let's go over to user and let's create a field called number of employees. And then we're going to select our option set, which is going to be employee number, and create that. And then the last one is going to be business type. And again, we will select our option set from the top of business type. So there we go. Okay, now we're ready to get started on building what it actually looks like. So here we are inside the Bubble design side of things. Let's start off by creating a group. Now this group is going to be kind of like the parent group where everything sits, and I'm going to call this page content, just because there's going to be nothing else on this page apart from this group here. And so that we can see it, I'm going to give it a white background, and I'm going to give it some roundness to the corners. I'm not the world's best designer, and I'm not going to put any effort into designing this today. This is more about how you actually create the multi-step form. But let's give it some very, very basic design elements, I guess. So let's put it in the middle. Let's create a little bit of space from the top. Let's give it some margins of perhaps 20. Oops, not that much. 25. Okay, there we go. So then we're going to have a title. It's just going to say, please fill in your information below. All right, let's make that a little bit bigger. Let's make that bold. Let's put it in the middle. And there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a different group for every part of the form. And we're going to have 4 parts of the form. We're going to have a first part where it's asking for their first name, their last name, and their email address. Second part, which is the address. Third part, which is about their business. And the fourth is just going to be their password. And the way we're going to do this, as I said, is have 4 different groups and use a custom state to switch between them. So let's create a group. Let's put it in here. And I'm going to call this group Step 1. I'm going to call it Step 1 group, actually. Then into this group, I'm going to put a little bit of information. So first, let's put in Step 1 as a little kind of like header to this part. So let's make that a little bit bigger. Again, this is not a design class, far from it, but there we go. Let's add a little bit of spacing above here, just to separate it a bit. Okay, now we're going to add in the label, which is going to ask them for their first name. And then we're going to give that a little bit of spacing. Then we're going to have our inputs. So let's find a single input line and make sure that goes in that group. And let's make that full width as well. And we're going to call this first name input. Okay. Then we're going to copy and paste this for last name. And we're just going to change this. And we're going to copy and paste the input and change the name to last name input. And then the last thing we want on this first step is going to be email address. So we're going to go email address, copy and paste, and just rename this to email input. All right, then we're going to make sure that this email input is of type email. We do not want it to be empty. We do not want this to be empty, and we do not want that to be empty either. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to add in at the bottom the buttons. So from this first step, we're just going to have one forward button because obviously there's not a step to go backwards. So I'm going to put that in a group. I'm going to put that at the bottom of this group, rename this group, call it buttons group, which usually is not a particularly good name, but it will do in this situation as we're not creating a massive, huge app. As you create bigger and bigger apps, you need better naming conventions, but it's fine for now. Let's give that a little bit of spacing. And let's call this next. And now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another option set. So if I go into data, go into option set, and I'm going to create one called step. So if I create step, we're going to have step 1, we're going to have step 2, we're going to have step 3, and we're going to have step 4. What these are going to be used for is these are going to be used to tell Bubble which screen or which group should be shown. Should it be step 1, step 2, step 3, or step 4? You could do this by text instead rather than option sets, but it's a little bit neater, a little bit nicer to use option sets. And that's going to annoy me if I don't have that set correctly. There we go. So what I'm going to do is to this page content group here, I'm going to come up and I'm going to create a new custom state. That's going to be called, let's call it page step. And I'm going to make that of type step, create that, and I'm going to make the default value step 1, because when the page loads, that should be step 1. Okay, then what I'm going to do is come into this group here, the step 1 group, and I'm going to add some conditional formatting into it. Before I do that, I need to click this collapse when hidden, so that when it's meant to be hidden, it is truly hidden and not showing. Then in the conditional, what we want to do is we want to find the page, or find the group of page content. We want to access the page step, and we want to check if it is step 1. And if it is step 1, that is this step. So obviously we want it to show, we want this group to show up. And I'm going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to make this second one to say if it is not step 1, then we do not want to show it. So if it's anything apart from step 1, don't show it. Great. So now we've got that conditional formatting in. What we're going to do is we are going to just copy and paste this step 1 group and to create step 2. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste. There we go. And I'm going to rename this to step 2 group. And first of all, whilst I've got it here, I'm going to make sure I am selecting the right group. So there we go. And I'm going to change this, the conditional formatting, to step 2. So if it is step 2, then show it. If it is not step 2, then do not show it. All right. And we should still have collapse when hidden selected as well. Great. So now I'm going to go through and change these here. So this is not step 1, this is step 2. And on this second page, we are going to collect the information about their address. So this first input should be address line 1. The second one is going to be address line 2. This next one is going to be, I'm just going to call it city. And we're going to make sure that on this one here, we make that text. We do not want to keep that email, we want to keep that text. And I'm going to rename these as well to city input. This one's going to be address line 2 input even. And this one's going to be address line 1 input. Okay, then what we're going to do is we need to have a few more fields. Which one are we going to have? We're going to have postcode and country, won't we? Okay, so let's copy this. And that's gone right to the bottom. So I'm going to pull that one up, put it in there, and copy and paste that as well. I'm going to rename this to postcode or zip code, whatever you want to call it. And let's rename the field here to postcode input. I'm going to do that once again for the country. And you could have for the country another option set where you only allow people to select from the countries that you enter. So maybe that may be all of the countries, or it may be just a subset if you only want people to sign up from certain countries. But today we're just going to leave it as an open field. So let's rename this country, and this is going to be country inputs. Okay, very good. So all of those are renamed, which is good. It's going to save us some headache a bit later. Now, what we want to do is we've got our next button, but we also want to have a back button. So I'm going to copy and paste that next button. And I need to change the layout of this group because it was column, and that wasn't a problem because we only have one item in there, but it needs to be row now. I'm going to reformat it so that we've got buttons at either end. They're both called the same thing, so that's fine. Doesn't matter which one I edit. I'm going to change this one and call this one back. And I'm going to very simply change the style, so it's the outline. And then we got our back and our next buttons. Okay, great. So we'll come back to those a bit later in terms of wiring those up. The next thing we're going to do is move on to our step 3. So let's get our step 2 group, give that a copy and paste. Here we have it on the left-hand side. Step 3 group. And the same thing we did last time, we're going to make sure that the conditionals are set correctly for step 3. And step 3. Okay, we're going to rename it for step 3. There we go. Now, what do we want here? Well, first of all, we want the type of business. So I'm going to change this label here to type of business. There we go. And we're going to have a drop down. Instead of just a normal input field, we're going to have a drop down. So let me get that from the left-hand side, put it in there, and get rid of that. And I'm going to make this full width as well, just so we've got a bit of standardization all within the full width. Now on the drop down, let me name this first type of business inputs. Then here we're going to go on choice selection, and we're going to go dynamic choices. type of choices is going to be an option set, and it's going to be business type. And we've already defined what those are. On the choices, we are going to select all, so all business types. And on the caption, we're going to say the current options display. And we don't actually have any other attributes for the option set, so that's all we can select there. Default value, we're just going to leave that empty. So it's not going to populate in the first one to begin with, it's just going to leave it empty. But we do not want this to be left empty overall, so let's select that. Okay, so next we want to do the number of employees. So we're going to rename this number of employees. There we go. And we're going to get rid of this, and I'm going to copy and paste this drop down, and it's gone to the bottom. There we go. It's in the right spot. Rename this number of employees input. And we're just going to have to change the type of choice from business type to employee number, and then change that to all employee number. And that's fine. So that's all we have to do there. So that's good. Then the last two were just ordinary fields. So we can get rid of this fifth one here. We don't need that. We just need two more. This one we were going to collect was the business name. And, oops, the last one was your, let's call it job role. I think we made a bit of a hash of naming it a couple of minutes ago, but that's fine. We'll make up for it and call it your job role. Let's rename these fields. Let's call it business name input and job, there we go, job role input. Okay, very good. So last of all, we need to create step 4, which is just for the password. So let's copy and paste group 3, make sure that we are editing the pasted group. I've done that many times before when you edit the wrong one. It's group, step 4 group, and we're going to go to the conditionals and make sure that we have got step 4 in there. Very good. Then we are going to go in, rename this to step 4. And what do we want to have here? We just wanted to have the password. So we can get rid of these, and then we can rename these two here. So we're going to call this one password, and we're going to put in here password confirmation. Okay, then we just need to rename the groups. So password input, and this one should be password confirmation. Confirmation input. All right, so now let's have a look at this page and see what we've got so far. We should just see all of those groups. In fact, no, because we have step 1. That's step 1 selected as the default. We should just see step 1. So there we go. We have just step 1. Looks pretty terrible, and it doesn't do anything at the moment, but that's what we're going to do next. So what we're going to do is we're going to make these buttons hook up to the correct thing. So this button here, what we're going to do is we're going to click Add Workflow, and this is in the first group, step 1, Add Workflow, and we are going to set the state of the page content, because that's where we had that step variable, that step custom state, page step, and we're going to go step 2, because this is in step 1, next needs to go to step 2. All right, now what I'm going to do is copy that, and I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of the next buttons. So on the step 2, let's paste that in, and let's make that go to step 3. And the same on step 3. There we go. And we're not going to do the same on step 4, because when we go step 4, we want it to just submit. So actually, I'm going to change that to submit. Okay, now let's do the back buttons. So same thing here, add workflow, and we just change it in the opposite direction. So for a back button on group 4, this wants to go to group 3. And then for group 3, or step 3 even, when we click back, we want that to go to step 2. That's already in there. And if they're on step 2 and they click back, we want them to go to step number 1. So step 1. Okay, so now if we give this a load, we're not going to have any fancy animations or anything like that, but we are going to have it so we can step through the different steps. We can see step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. In fact, step 3 isn't working. We've probably made a mistake. here. Yes, this needs to be step 4. There are probably some of you who have seen that whilst I was doing it and thought I made a mistake. Well done. That's a very easy one to fix. So now when we step all the way through, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got submit, and we can go all the way back as well. We're back to step 1. All right, good. So now really all we need to do is we need to make sure that when this is submitted, we are creating an account and inputting those fields. So let's go back to the Visual Editor. Let's go on the submit button and create the workflow there. So the first step we're going to do here is we want to create a new, we want to sign up the user. That's what we want to do. Okay, there we go. And we're going to add all fields, and there we can see all of the inputs that we need to take from the page. And this is where having good naming conventions is really going to speed things up. So email is going to be email input and that value. We do want a password confirmation, so we've got those 2 input fields for the password, so they make sure they're the same. We are going to call this, or we're going to get the password input value. For the confirmation, we're going to get password confirmation inputs value. We do not want to do this. We do want to remember the email. Okay, so the address city is going to be the city inputs value. The country is going to be the country inputs value. The address line 1 is going to be line 1 input value. And I'm going to just do the same for all of these down here. So we've got the postcode or the zip code. So there we go, we've got the value for that. Now these are our drop downs here. So what we're going to do, the business name isn't. Business name should just be business name inputs value. Business type is our drop down. So if we go business, type of business input, then we can select value, and it just works exactly the same. We've got our first name, so we get first name input. We're going to get our last name, so last name input. Then we select value. Number of employees, we are going to see when you have a option set, it does give you the choice to just hard code in which one you want there to be. So let's say we picked 2 to 10. That means that whenever someone signed up, whatever they put in that group, we would kind of override it and give them the 2 to 10. But actually what we want is the number of employees input so they can select it themselves. And the last one is person in business, which is the name that I kind of butchered. I think we call this job role input. All right, there we go. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is create something so we know, if it's been successful or not. So I think what I'm going to do is actually create a new step. So I'm going to create a step called success, create that, and then I'm going to do a set state of that page group, page content, page step, there we go. And we want this to go to success, but only if the user is signed in. So if the current user is logged in. So what that means is that this person successfully signed up, and if they have signed up, then it's going to go to success. Now we don't actually have anything set up for success, so I'm going to create a very, very simple group, probably with just a big tick icon in it. So let's make sure that's in the right place. Where have I put that? Okay, so here's this group. Let's close down these other groups just to make it nice and neat. Let's call this success group or logging group or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to put this at the bottom. We need to add the conditionals that we've got in the other steps. So I'm going to copy that from step 4, paste that in, but it's not going to be step 4, it's going to be success. I'm going to copy that as well and say when it's not success, do not show it, and we want to make sure that it's hidden or it's collapsed when it's hidden. So then what we want is just want to put an icon in there. So let's put that in there. Let's see if we've got a check mark. Let's find a nice one. Yeah, I think that's as nice as we're going to get. Let's make that green. Let's make it quite a lot bigger. Let's see what 100 looks like. Yeah, that should be fine. Let's put some top and bottom to that. And let's make sure that's in the middle. I don't think we need to put anything else. We could put some text, but for now, that is all we're going to do. So let's just double check that that should be working now. So that should go to success. Yep. All right. Let's give this a go and see how we're doing. So let's go Matt test, matt@gmail.com. Address line 1, or let's go 4 Castle Road. Let's go London Street in London, and let's call that, let's put in a random postcode there, and we're going to say the UK. Go next. So here we've got our type of business. Let's say we are a software business, the best type of business. Number of employees, we've got 11 to 50. Let's say software for you. My job role is going to be the director. Next. So let's put in a rubbish password, which I'm sure Google Chrome is going to get angry at me for. Let's click submit. It's going to load. It's going to save all that information. Yep, there we go. Don't want that. There we go. Success. And actually, we probably should have got rid of that as well. We can just add a conditional to that. If we go in here and if we say when the page content groups page step is success, that should not be visible. And what's that going to do? You won't see it now, but that will get rid of this. And actually, we could have done something else, such as if it is success. In fact, let's change this. So the text is, just call it success, which means if we go through again, that's going to appear as success on the back end. And just to prove that it is working, let's look at the back end, look at the data, app data. Nothing in there at the moment. Let's give this a reload. And when we reload it, we can see all of our information is in there. Let's open it up. You can see we've got Matt Test, who's the director of Software for You, with this many employees in the software business, and that's their address. So there you can see how we've created a very simple, let's go back here, a very simple multi-step form to collect data, not all on one page, so you don't have a big long form, but you can collect it in a nice multi-step process. So the last thing I'm going to add in is a progress bar. So let's go over to plugins, let's add a new plugin, and let's go for progress bar. Where's the one I want? Here it is. Took a bit of scrolling, but the one by Bubble, we want that. So let's install that. We're going to come over and type in progress, and we're going to put that up at the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this the primary color. The percentage, I'm going to put that as 0 to begin with, and I'll do some conditional formatting in just a second. But I'm going to make the font color translucent, so you can't see the number, because what I want is just like a little ribbon at the top. I want it to be smaller than that. I want the height to be maybe just 2 pixels, and I want it to be all the way across. And let's add a little bit of spacing. There we go. So then in the conditionals, what we want to do is go to that page content. We want to go page step is, and if it's step 1, I'm going to have to do some quick maths here, aren't I? So if there's 5 different steps, we want it to be broken down by 20% each, I think. Let's see if that maths is correct. So that's going to be step 1, step 2, step 3, oops, bring it over here, step 4, and lastly, success. So success is going to be 100%. Step 4 is going to be 80%. This is going to be 60%, and this is going to be 40%. All right, so now if we reload this, what we should see is a nice progress bar that appears here. Okay, I see why that is. I think that's the border. So we need to go in here, select our progress bar, and find our border. Yep, here we go. Let's remove that. So now hopefully we shouldn't have that border. We should just have it filling up to 20%. And we can go through a next step, and next step, and next step, and it fills up. Oops, step 4 looks like we haven't done that correctly. Let's go back and catch that. Step 4, yep, that should be 80. Looks like they didn't enter properly. And success should be 100. So there we have it. Let's give that a reload. And we can now see that I'm not going to enter any data here because I don't want to put you through the process of seeing me type nice and slowly. You can see that that fills in. And if we went on to submit, then that would also complete it. So there we go. There is how you can create a multi-step input form within Bubble, very nice and simply. Obviously, you can make this look much nicer. You can add animations. So step 1 fades out, with step 2 comes in. You can put your logo there. You can change all of the how it looks and the design to it. But that's the basics of how you build a multi-step form in Bubble. If you've got any questions or you find any errors anywhere when you do yours, then do leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.